Everything is in motion. This is one day at a time. Everyone has cancer, and this is where I battle mine. Hey guys, and welcome to episode 5, number 5. Big ol' uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco. Yeah, cinco. Yeah. Yeah, I'm smart. Episode cinco, man, of my brand new show, Everyone Has Cancer. I am Cody of the Court of Cows. This is my show where I'm going to tell my story and hopefully help someone else out in the process. Why may you be interested in my story? Well, let me tell you. In 2001, I was diagnosed with leukemia. And then again in 2005 when I relapsed. These were very hard fights, but on top of that, I had issues with the family, because when you get sick, you don't get sick by yourself, man. You get sick as a unit. Like the whole family gets sick. Like you're basically the hub of a wheel. You don't become cancer, but it affects you and everyone around you. And for, if you've listened this far, if you listen to the other 4 episodes, which I think 12 people have, and 11 of them are related to me. So, yeah, what's up, guys? But yeah, like, I'm going to try and, make this a little bit short and sweet, so I don't seem too repetitive. But here's the thing, is that everyone has cancer. That's why I called the show that. Now, don't get worried. You may not have cancer. But, for many years, I've had people come up to me and tell me how strong and courageous I was because of all I've been through. But, I would look at them and, they'd be like friends or family members that I know they went through something like just as bad. And they'd say, well, I don't know how you got through that. And I'd say, well, you went through a domestic abuse. You went through an addiction to drugs or to pornography, or you were raped or molested, or you have suicidal thoughts. You have an anxiety disorder. You have a, physical, sexual, or mental abuse that you're going through. I don't know how you got through that. And that's when it kind of dawned on me a long time ago that everyone has their cancer. Everyone has that one thing in their life that they're trying to get through, or they're going through, or they will go through. And what it's going to do, it's going to define them as a person. Now, that's not to say that me being a leukemia patient, I identify with that, but that's not who I am. I'm not Cody, the guy who had cancer. I'm just Cody. I'm the guy who beat cancer. And you guys can beat what you're going through. And, you may search, and like I did, and we're going to talk about it here in a little bit, where you may search, scratch, and claw for years, wondering why something so awful happened to you, but it passes others by the wayside. And you may look for meaning in it. And, the sad part is there's not always meaning in it. There's not always you didn't go through or are going through what you're going through because you deserve it. No one deserves anything. Deserving, in my opinion, is something that is a man-made presumption. People decided that what they deserve is what they should get, and and that's true. But I mean, it doesn't. It's random, but it's not so random. And it's random in the fact that you didn't ask for it. It wasn't always predetermined that you were going to have to go through whatever horrible thing that you've gone through, or that you faced in your life, whatever nightmare you faced. But when you get to the other side of it, the way you can give it meaning, as Batman said in BVS, is this world only makes sense when we make it. So here's how you give it meaning is me, when someone says to me, you're strong and courageous for going through what you went through. To me, what I went through is laying down, throwing up, and being messed up on a lot of painkillers. And, and losing a bunch of weight and doing all that and doing a bunch of crap that I did not want to do. But I don't know where I never saw strength and courage and just laying there crying and throwing up. But it's when someone looks into it, it touches their lives. What your attitude and your personality after the fact of all you've been through, that's what's inspiring. Not the fact that you go through it. You don't just go through something and someone says, oh, well, you did your time, so now you're an inspiration, now you're a hero. Batman's not a hero because his parents were killed. He was a hero because of who he became after his parents were killed. Does that make sense? But yeah, so I would have friends or family tell me, well, hey, it's nothing compared to what you went through. And I'd be like, well, hey, don't downplay yourself and don't put me up on a pedestal. Don't make me some kind of hero because I'm not. I'm just a person trying to figure out my life just like you are, and but when someone sees it from the outside, it gives them inspiration. It makes them feel like they can do it. If that person can do it, I can get through it too. Like I've said before on the show, I've had friends come up to me after I've done the show that have told me that they, struggle with suicidal thoughts. And, well, here's the system they have worked out at their household when they start having these thoughts. All the sharp objects get locked in a safe and then when it gets really bad, they call the therapist or they just have a process. People with anxiety disorders, such as myself, that's another thing. I've been through it. I've gone through, because of all the hospital stuff, sometimes you can't walk away from a bunch of hospital stuff without some kind of addiction to pain pills. I ended up with one of those. I ended up with, bad relationships inside my family and with my father and specifically. And, and it's just stuff that it's a byproduct of all of it. And I've been through all of it. Not to the extreme that some people have gone. Like, at my worst, as far as, like, pill addiction, I was taking maybe 3 to 5 oxycodones a day. And some people might look at that and say, wow, that's a lot. But here's the thing, I never bought them off the street. They were all prescribed to me. I was able to, like, finagle my way. Because, that I guess that was one thing good. I was using my powers for evil for many, many years and saying, well, like, I had cancer, so I can kind of get whatever I want. As far as medications go, like, I just say, like, hey, ever since then, this happened. And, now I'm, I'm just stuck with... pains for the rest of my life. And then, honestly, that ended up catching up to me. But I'm getting really ahead of myself. But no, so, like, I've been through all that. And, some people might hear 3 to 5 pills a day. That's a lot. How did you not overdose on that? And some people might say, yeah, I used to take 32. I wouldn't get out of my bed for less than 28. I actually have a friend that I've been talking to that, he was one of my best friends, and we'll talk about him later. And I just don't want to tell anything too much about him, but dude, he's my brother. Like, not my brother, but me and him were Batman and Robin for the longest time. Like, we were inseparable. Like, we spent every waking moment together and hung out, and it came... And you know what? I think I'll tell a little bit of that story, but we'll get there. Again, this is just setting it all up. But, he's got a really good story about, I remember a time when he would not get out of bed for less than like X amount of pills. And that's his story to tell. I'm planning on having him on here. We're already talking about having him on here. But, I'm going to start having guest speakers because, there's so many people that could add to this story. Because, again, this isn't my story. This is our story. If you are listening to this, this is your story. And you may even be a part of it. Because, hey, Broken Arrow is a small town. And that's where I grew up. That's where all this happened. It's kind of like, growing up in like a small town in like a horror movie. Like, once something kind of like Riverdale. Like, it takes one bad, horrible situation, and it involves everyone, and it's the talk of the town. It's, maybe it's not that big of a deal, but it's the biggest they got, so it's huge. So but yeah, I'm always going to humble myself, because a lot, getting in there, I would see the real heroes, which are like these little kids that are bald. Not just bald. The kids in the commercials, they exist. Like not a single hair on them. And honestly, I don't mean this in like a mean-spirited way, and I hope you guys don't take this the wrong way, but bald and shaped to the point of by this sickness that the only way you could tell boy from girl is the girls would have earrings, or they would be in pink or something like that, or and that's how you could tell. And or you'd hear the mom call the name, or you'd hear her voice, and it'd be just the sweetest little voice. And these kids are going through the same thing I'm going through, and I'm at the time I was 16 in 2001, and that was, these kids are 6, 7, 8, and they are doing everything I'm doing, and they actually have the nerve to smile. And like in the pediatric wing of St. Francis, the 6th floor, man, that's where I lived for a long time, and you have that little pediatric center with all the toys and all that, and there'd be kids in there, and they weren't just pretending to have a good time, they were having a blast. They love the nurses. The nurses are like walking around with their faces painted because they sat down with the kids, and like they painted each other's faces and stuff like that. Just like beautiful things. So facing these horrible things, but having the nerve to smile like that, those are heroes to me. And a lot of those kids probably grew up and said, well, yeah, I had cancer when I was a kid. Yeah, it sucked. But I was 6. I don't really remember much of it. But they would go. They would sit there and have a blast, play hide and seek. I'd play with them, and we'd play a video game together or something. And then like the nurses would come in all painted up if it was Halloween, or because it just was, and or something like that. And then just have the time of their life, and then be like, all right, well, I'm off to take another batch of chemotherapy, and then they bunker down and get it done, I don't even know how I got on that, but yeah, basically, like, that was an inspiration to me. I think that's where I was going with that. And so that's where I want to go with this show. I just want you to tell your story. How you give meaning to it is when you go through it, someone else may see it, but if you bottle it up and you never say anything about it, no one can ever see it. It can't help anyone. And when you tell the story, when you give testimony, when you talk about it, you have no idea. You may have a little bit of an idea, but it is so cleansing. It gives it meaning. Like I'm sitting here doing this, giving it meaning. I'm saying that why I went through what I went through is so I could sit here and talk to you guys about it and tell you my story and hope that it helps you out. And I have developed the skills to get through, like my day-to-day life and my day-to-day thinking, and but maybe someone who's listening to this or someone out there isn't as familiar with it. Maybe they're just, because that's where I'm going with that, is that you need to tell your story to someone because they need hope. And when you give hope, you get hope. Like it's just how it works. So like when you shine a light at someone, a light is reflected onto you. And that's how we heal ourselves. By saving you, I save myself. So yeah, that's the whole point of the show, is just to let you guys know that there's hope, and there's, and that there's a reason that we went through it, but the reason isn't going to be told to you. You give it reason. You have to tell other people not why you went through it, because that's the thing, is it's random to the point where it doesn't. I don't think, just a bunch of cards go out and they say, okay, well, Johnny's gonna get cancer, Emily's gonna get sexually assaulted, and Billy down the street he's gonna get addicted to drugs, and Cheyenne is gonna have suicidal thoughts. It's not like that. Like we don't get to choose the cards we're dealt, but we get to decide how those cards leave our hand. We get to decide what we're gonna do about it. How we're going to save ourselves, and the best way to do it is just to tell your story. Even if no one listens. Like I said, the last episode, last I checked, had 12 listeners, which is fine. It's not about how many listeners. It's about, I want maybe those 12 people can sit there and say, well, maybe I need to go tell my story. Just start talking. That's kind of, that's where I'm going with it is, just tell someone, write it down, give it to someone. And, because you're going to see someone. I mean, how many times have you been at work and, when you first got there, you were scared, you were intimidated, but, you really wanted the job to work out. And then before you knew it, a year had gone by now, or like a couple weeks go by, we'll say, and you're starting to get the swing of things, and then like a couple months go by, and now something just goes off, it clicks in you, and now you really understand the job. And so you stick around there for a year, and then you're really established, you know what's going on, maybe you're even running the place, or at least have a couple people underneath you. And then you see the new person come in, and you see the same look in their eye that you had, like that confused, bewildered, like, what the hell am I going to do? What have I gotten myself into? What is this? And you know that feeling. And because you did it too. And it may be different, you may look at him and roll your eyes because, like, oh God, I hate new people, because we've all been there, but you may have like a anxiety disorder or something like that, or like a social anxiety or a fear of people even, that you can sit there and say that you've worked through, you've come up with the processes, and maybe you're even on medications that help you with like antidepressants or anti-anxiety, like, myself, I'm on both. And, and now you have the skills to get through it. But, when you look over and you see this person with none of the skills, like my friend said, we can have all the skills and the tools in the world, but at the end of the day, it's our own decision. And I've been saying that a lot lately, and I think that it just really spoke volumes to me. And but yeah, you'd look over and see this person and be like, dude, they don't have the skills, they don't know what they're doing, and they're so completely overburdened and overwhelmed, and they're about to crack. Look at them. And you see them, like, everyone's passing by and everyone's looking at them, like, and maybe you see a couple of them going, "Are you all right?" And they're just going, "Yeah, no, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good." Now you might be, my phone's going off, and you may notice that. You may smell your own a little bit and want to take them aside and be like, "Hey, look, I know it's scary, I know it's confusing, but stick with it, do this." And what do? You relate to them. You just say, "Look, when I first started, I was so freaked out and I was so scared." And for some reason that calms us. That says, "Oh, okay, so I'm not a psychopath. I'm not weird. I'm not abnormal, like I'm actually quite normal." It's the fact that we're all so different that makes us one, it's the fact that none of us are alike that makes us so alike. We all have our own little idiosyncrasies, and we all have our own little issues and our own little ways of going about things, and some are better than others, and some are very stressful, and some don't make sense to a lot of people, but at the end of the day, it's just how we process. And that's what, that's all I'm trying to say, is that if you just give your story to someone else, it may help them out. So, man. Oh, excuse me. But, So yeah, that's what the show's about. That's my resolve for the whole thing. Sometimes this show's going to be happy. Sometimes it's not going to be so happy. But I had mentioned before that I am Cody from the Court of Cows. If you don't know what the Court of Cows is, I'm going to do a little bit of shameless plugging here and say that the Court of Cows is another YouTube channel that me and some guys have where we talk about comics, we talk about toys, we do a lot of unboxings, we do a lot of podcasts that usually involves superheroes and DC related stuff. I know we're going to see the new Thor here in a couple days. So looking forward to that, and we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff on there, and we've got a load of content on there. But one thing we don't have is a youtube.com/Court of Cows. This is big long name. So if you go to facebook.com/Court of Cows, you can find all of our stuff through there. And you can also, we have a Twitch account at Court of Cows, I believe, and an Instagram, which I believe is the same as at Court of Cows. Oh wait, no, the Twitch is something else, and I forgot the title for it. But yeah, you'll be able to find a link through there, and also through there you can find all your boy here. You can find all the Everyone Has Cancer stuff. So last time we talked about me coming home, but I was far, far, far from being out of the woods, and really just kind of going into and honestly, like, getting diagnosed with cancer and then getting out of the hospital was just the beginning of the fight. You'd think it was at the end, but it's not like, you do your time, come out and you're good, and then you just get acclimated into life. It's get acclimated into life on top of all the stuff you have to do on, as far as taking different kind of medications, going back and forth to the hospital. And here we go, talking and taking steroids. So let's go ahead and put 45 minutes on the clock, and let's see how much of this we can actually talk about. Turn the fan off so we don't have any background noise. But here we go, and start. So I'm home now. At this point in the story, I'm just working on getting better. And it's not... That's the thing. They don't just say, okay, it's not like your regular... Obviously, it's not like your garden variety hospital visit where they say, okay, well, you're good. Here, take these, call me in the morning, and, let me know if you have any side effects, and follow up with your with your family physician. And it's not like that. You come home, you still got to take a lot of shots. I still have a portacath in my chest. So I have this tube sticking out. I have to go to the hospital every Monday, and get this thing flushed, get blood work done to make sure I'm still cancer free, and if my red blood cells are low, if my platelets are low, get a bag of blood cells, get a bag of say that 10 times fast. Get a bag of platelets, or if I'm I think it was every 3 weeks I had to get a spinal tap, so like I had to, I know there's a movie called Spinal Tap, but but a real spinal tap where you have to lay down, get a needle stuck in the base of your spine, which if you've listened before, a lot of stuff happened to my spine, and they suck out some of the spinal fluid and check it out, and again, make sure if there's any cancer cells in it. But, you're also taking a bunch of medication. I had this shot that my mom had to, every morning, regardless of going to the hospital or not, my mom had to give me this medicine in the port and then flush out the port to make sure, because it's connected to an artery in my heart. So, and it's kind of like an open wound with a tube sticking out of it. So we had to, put medicine in there and then flush it, which is, get a bunch of saline fluid and get it in there. And like I said, I had, in the freezer, it just looked like a chemistry set in there, like just all these little vials, and they were all just medicine. And, we had to like put them in this pack and microwave it, because if you flushed it too cold, it could make you sick. And it was a process, and it was a morning routine. It was a nightly routine. All the while I'm trying to get better and get healthier and get stronger, but you don't just drop to 90 pounds and bounce back from it. You're taking handfuls of pills. Like, I remember the methotrexate, which is, chemotherapy, like pill form methotrexate. You had to take like 18 of them at a time, and there's like these little bitty tablets, and it looked like you just had a handful of little bitty candy, and you just had to take that. But at the same time, you had all these other pills. You had, I had one, of course, having one of those 7-day boxes where like the little cubbies in them and stuff, like had those in there. Some of them were like teeny tiny pills. Some of them were like big old horse tranquilizer pills. And I just got to a point where like my gag reflex was pretty astounding. Like it was damn near non-existent, and because now I can take a pill like no problem. It doesn't, I don't have to fight it down or anything. Like it's just, I can kind of swallow any kind of pill, which, would cause a problem later in life. And but yeah, and also still throwing up at random. Like there'd be times where I would just eat too much and just puke up, or I would eat something that was just a little too spicy, or like the cheese was just on whatever I was eating was a little too strong. Man, I remember, and like if I threw up too much, which is like 3 times, had to go back up to the hospital for the night because my fluids were too low. Because you were always like borderline. At the time, for me, I was always borderline dehydrated, just from like how little meat I had on my bones and how little my body was able to sustain water. Because that's the thing, is chemotherapy, it doesn't just kill, I'm sure we all know this, but it doesn't just kill cancer cells. It's setting off a nuclear bomb inside your body. It kills everything, like, after the second time, they told me that, like, I could not, if I was to get sick a third time, I could not go through the regime that I went through the second time and live. Like, it would kill me. Like, they'd have to do it a completely other way. And so, that first time is just flushing your body full of chemotherapy and steroids and all that. But that was the biggest one, man. Like, I'm sorry. I was going to say, like, I remember one night, I used to love eating chili dogs. Like, I was a big Sonic the Hedgehog fan, still am, and that translated as me just really, really liking chili dogs for a while. And I remember when I finally got saucy enough to where I was like, all right, I'm going to finally eat another chili dog after like a year of trying to get better. And I ate it, and it stayed down. It was good. And that night, I was puking my guts out. It was just, couldn't do chili. It was too hard on the stomach. And yet threw up twice, so had to go up to the hospital. If I had a fever that got up past the double digits, then had to go to the hospital. Like, pretty much anything. If I had a headache that went on too long, had to go up to the hospital. Because I also, chemotherapy is also awful on your liver and kidneys. And like I said, before all this, I was already a bad kid and like drinking and smoking and doing all that. So my kidneys and liver weren't all in that great of condition anyways. So like I had an elevated bilirubin, which still don't really know like the ins and outs and like the total description of what that means, but it basically means your liver is shot, and and that your guts are awful, So they've gotten better with time, but kind of everything does, and but man, I hated the steroids. Like, that was the one thing that those were just the hardest on me. Like, after a while, starting to get better, still having to go to the hospital every Monday. But, at one point I'm able to like kind of go out, and you kind of just take it at baby steps, man. Like you start going out a little bit more because you can actually like get down the road. My buddy Christina, I had this, all my friends lived in the neighborhood, but, right before I got sick, one of my best friends was this girl named Christina that lived in the neighborhood, and she lived just down the block, and that was the big hangout spot. Like, everyone chilled at Christina's house. It was, I just finished Stranger Things, and I'm in love with it, and that's not the point of the show, but it was kind of like, it was kind of like Will's house. It was like kind of everything just kind of went back to Will's house, and like that's where they all kicked it, and like that's where most of the story takes place, and like the kind of the heart of the story. That's where me, Matt, Chris, like all of us hung out, and I remember finally going back over there, and I didn't just get to walk down there. I had to take a wheelchair. So I'm like going down there, like someone's wheeling me down there and got to wheel me all the way back, So you just bless all my friends for, putting up with all that, And, but, as that's going on, like it's, I'm trying to remember like the sequence of it, but it was every Monday going to the hospital, and it was every 3 weeks. I think you had to go to the hospital and get a round of chemotherapy, and then you had to wait for 3 days for it to flush your system, and usually it took 3 days for it to flush your system. But it was every 3 weeks, and, that you had to go. So, I would try so hard to not get sick because I didn't want to go up there more than 3 weeks, and, but yeah, you had to. I just got to the point where I was just going up there. Like I had my little my 3-week bag. Like I just had video games and like stuff that I always had in that bag, and I'd like swap it out. Like if a new Batman comic came out, or a new like Sonic or Spawn came out, I wouldn't read it. I would just let them pile up, and just take all that, to the hospital. Or I just a lot of the time. I didn't like just laying there and reading. I'd prefer to just lay there and play video games. So, like, I would, have a stack of games that I'd be like, all right, I'm going to beat this, I'm going to beat this, then I'm going to beat this. And while I'm at the hospital. And I think it was I feel like it was every 6 weeks I had to do a round of steroids. Oh God. Okay, I keep kind of touching on it. Here's the thing. Steroids at small doses aren't that bad. I mean, we've all gotten a really bad sinus infection and had to go on a round of steroids. But when you get into like the higher doses of them, that's where I start really respecting women that have had kids, and well, women in general, but because you are an emotional roller coaster. Like, you cannot get control of your emotions. You can't sleep. Your appetite is out of this world. It just made me respect them a lot more, for just what they have to, some of the stuff they have to go through that guys don't, But if I had to pick anything that, kind of gives me a good idea of being pregnant, it would be steroids. Because, man, if I was slightly happy, I was crying. If I was slightly sad, I was crying. If I was slightly angry, I was crying. Like, no matter what. And then all the while, like, I got to a point where I was, craving just weird foods. I want tater tots. I want Sonic tater tots and McDonald's burger and Arby's fries, and ice cream covering all of it, and then like as I'm eating all that, I'm like, I want potato skins, and and I'd be sitting there eating that and be like, what sounds good is popcorn. Like as I'm eating it, I'm like, popcorn, and but yeah, that was just a very hard time, and very, very like the libido's going nuts at the same time, but it's hard to kind of perform, on that stuff. Yeah, so I mean, like, your libido's going crazy, but you can't do anything about it. Like, you're just an emotional roller coaster, and then when you get off of them, like, you don't just stop. It's like another week before you start just leveling out, and then it hits you all at once. And I remember when I was going back to school, I would still have those, like, every few weeks where I'd have to do a round of steroids. But I'm obviously wasn't on the high doses that I was, but, like, by the time it was starting to affect me, like, emotionally and all that, I would be done with them. Like, I would be, like, not having to take them anymore. But I wanted everything. Like, I wanted food. I wanted to talk to every single girl, and I wanted to cry the entire time. And then when I was finally off of it, it wasn't like hey, I'm leveling back out. No, it was like a crash. Like, you wouldn't be able to sleep for a couple days, and then suddenly, like, you could not wake up, and then you were just out of it and just asleep for the whole day, and then you were back to normal. So, I mean, it was just, I knew what it was going to do to me. I knew how it was affecting me. But, oh God, it was so hard to go through. And that, honestly, that was the most, that was the thing I hated the most out of the whole thing. The second time around is when they told me that I was going to have to take another round of steroids first. Like, the very first thing I was going to have to do is take this, like, high dose of steroids like that. I remember bargaining with the doctor and just saying, please, God, please don't. No, I don't want to do steroids. No. No is no. And I tried to get out of it like she was just going to be like, all right, I'll let you slide, but it wasn't about that, and I get that now, but at the time you just bargain. But yeah, dude, that was the hardest time, and because also I was, like, real cognitively there, because, I mean, you're alert as heck, and, you're aware of everything. Like, you're kind of having to face everything all at once. You don't, there's no escape. You can't fall asleep, you can't take a nap, you can't run from anything. I used to watch, if I watched the wrong commercial, I'd sit there and end up, like, crying my eyes out, because I'm like, oh my God, that's so sad. And what, this cricket commercial, oh God. Or like this Geico commercial, this lizard's so small and he wants to be noticed by everyone. God, I remember watching The Incredibles. Yeah, like that scene. Violet, put a shield around the plane now. Like, I could not watch that without, like, oh God, they're all gonna die, and Violet, they're asking too much of Violet, and oh God, the poor girl, and poor Dash, and poor whole family, and oh God, I was an emotional wreck, But yeah, like, you slowly kind of get back out there, but at the same time, you're kind of having to go through a lot of different medications, and that's what I was doing, is going through all these different medications, but still, like, trying to get back out there, and that really whittled my friends down too. If you couldn't come over and see me, like, we just didn't have a relationship at that time being, because, like I said before, I kind of had bigger fish to fry, and I don't mean that in like no, I'm doing this now, so I'm not hanging out with you. That's the thing, man, is, like, if that's when you find out who your school friends are and who your real friends are, and I just lost track of a lot of people, and I don't mean that in, like, again, don't mean that in a vindictive way. We just lost track of each other. We just went separate ways. I was dating this girl before I went in the first time, named Becca, and me and her were, like, really good together. We were very comfortable and very happy, and then afterwards it just kind of turned out that it was just kind of a high school thing, like I think we tried to reconnect afterwards, and I just got, it just didn't work out, and but yeah, it was just because, like, now it just kind of changes the dynamic a little bit, and that was another big culture shock that I kind of want to talk about, is that when you I thought I could just get back out there, pick up with my friends, and like just carry on like it didn't happen. Be like, hey, just kind of like I took a detour, but we all arrived at the same destination. Like, hey, yeah, sorry, I got hung up back there. But yeah, so what were you talking about? But people bonded. Life moved on. How I viewed it for the longest time is I used to look at the window in the hospital room and just see life passing by. It just kind of felt like I was you get taken out and you get put in this world that is the hospital. And to tons of people, it's a place of work, but to even more people, it's a cell. It's a holding cell that you get. They tell you you're getting better there, but really you can't leave. You know, I mean, you can. No one's holding you there against your will. Actually, legally, if you say I'm going home, they can't stop you. But I felt like life was carrying on without me, and time did not factor into my life. Time and normalcy was no longer a part of who I was. You know, so, you know, when I would talk to Jared and he'd say, oh, yeah, I was dating this one girl, and, you know, and so says I was cheating on her, but I wasn't. And you know, I talked to Brian's friend's cousin's sister's brother who saw someone do this, and yeah, like, Stacy took it the wrong way because of this. None of that mattered to me. Like, I mean, I wasn't just like, oh, that's so stupid. But it didn't affect me like it used to. You know? Like, you find out what's really important, you know, when you face your mortality. And another big message I want on this show is that once you face your own mortality, or you face this big thing, what's going to happen is if you give meaning to it, it makes you into the best person, into the best version of you. Not the best person you can be. It's not like the military where you go in and they make you a soldier. Like, you just come out the other side of it and you are this perfect entity. Because you're perfectly flawed, beautiful creature. It's the whole larval stage into a butterfly thing. It's a hard winter, and that's as a matter of fact, like that Christmas. I'm kind of all over the place on this episode, but man, that Christmas back home, I got home maybe a little into December, and we had that horrible ice storm. It was snowing, like everything was iced over. Everyone was losing power, and they sold a lot of backup generators at Walmart, and a lot of people had backup generators and like big nuclear missile looking heaters, and that's just kind of what they had to do. So I mean, and that not even that like affected me because I lived at the hospital now. It was just. It changed the dynamic of how you looked at everything. It changed your whole outlook on yourself. It changed your personality. And I didn't even know who I was, you know? Like, I realized that I don't know who I was before this, you know, before being sick. But, you know, as far as I was concerned, I was born in 2001, you know, because I didn't... And I tried to make sense of that for the longest time, but I didn't cherish anything. Like, I was just kind of floating through life, you know, and just kind of like floating from one good time to the next good time. And, you know, I do kind of wonder, in like another dimension on Earth 2 Cody, like that never got cancer, I kind of wonder what that guy would be like. You know, if he would be a deadbeat, or if he would just be, or if he would have just had, I don't know what I would have had, but I guarantee you something else would have happened because it defined me. It made me the best person I am, or the best version of myself, the man I am today. If I would have gotten the life I wanted, then I wouldn't be the person I am today. So, But new relationships had started. Their lives had moved on, and I had to reacclimate myself into the group. Around this time, we would I would I would try to go hang out with the guys, and you know, uh, everyone looked at me a little bit differently. Everyone looked at me like a Fabergé egg or like a newborn. Some people just didn't know what to do with me. They didn't know how to act around me. Like I was either gonna, that I was gonna be broken at any time. If I cleared my throat a little too long, they'd be like, "Oh my God, shut off the music, shut off this, Cody, are you okay?" And all that, and so like I didn't even get treated the same for the longest time. Like and to this day, I have this real disposition about pity. Like, if anyone, I don't like people asking me if I'm all right. I don't like people, like, taking moments to, like, help fix me. Or, like, basically acting like I'm broken because, I got that for the longest time. People tiptoeing around me so as not to hurt me, And it made me feel like I wasn't a person for the longest time. It made me feel like an infant. It made me feel like a newborn because that's kind of how I was treated. And I remember it felt like wearing a mask, also because I would, like I said, I had all those charities, for a while, and all that money kind of went to me. So like, I would just kind of go out with my mom or whatever. And, we'd like go out to the mall and I'd buy like some shirts or something, and, we'd move on. And I remember I was at a point, at one point in my life, I didn't even look at price tags. Like I would just grab stuff and go. And like, and not just saying like, oh yeah, I was living like a rock star lifestyle again. It was really just like if I was with a friend and they said, oh, I like that. I had nothing but expendable or disposable income. So, I'd be like, all right, and I'd buy it, or just stuff like that. And that I still actually struggle with that today. I just think I have all this disposable income when I don't. But yeah, like if I was, while I was at the store, if I was in a wheelchair and like someone looked at me a little too long, I'd be like, dude, will this guy please just F off? Dude, what are you looking at? Yes, I'm bald and in a wheelchair and I look like a skeleton. Like it's not making it easier for me for you to sit there and stare. Just move on. Just walk on, dude. Walk on home, boy. And but if I saw someone that I knew that didn't recognize me, that's when it felt like wearing a mask, because some people would like come up and like sit there and talk to me for a little bit, knowing and just with this very familiar vibe, and then they just look in my eyes too long and then realize who I was, and it took people a minute to figure out who I was, and that's when I realized I had, my entire look had changed, but at the same time, like even if I had the same look, the whole demeanor had changed. Like I was, you're not the same person that you are when you go, when you come back from the fight, and even if you're still in it, it just changes you forever. And but my friends still saw me, and my real friends, the true friends in there. And it just kind of went like that for the longest time, like going to the hospital back and forth, taking steroids when I had to, which was, just a horrible time. And it got easier every day. I got a little bit stronger every day. I don't know where all my family was at the time, and I can't really say like what battles they were going through, because I was just trying to get through what I was going through. A lot of like crazy weird stuff happened to just your body goes through all these crazy changes. We're gonna get a little gross. My skin on my hands and feet were just, it was like a lizard. Like I was just shedding constantly. and like I could pull up my foot, and like I'd be on my hands. I used to be able to, at one point I could grab at the base of my, between, you know, my palm and my middle finger, and grab like the little bit of skin hanging up there, and just pull off like the entire front of my middle finger like a snake skin. Just like the entire thing would just come right off. It would just slough off, and and then I would just have this perfect finger, like just sitting there, like and my feet were the same way. Like I used to hate going in the bathroom because one, the mirror was there. Bathrooms were horrible for me. I was like John Travolta in Pulp Fiction, you know, because I would, if I was walking and there was like skin kind of sticking off of my foot, I could feel it, you know, and it would, you know, kind of hurt my foot. So I'd pull it off, but if I pulled it off, it was new skin under there, so it would be really, really cold, and you know, so that would suck. What else can we talk about on here on this specific episode? Because I'm trying to fit in as much as possible from like the, you know, the newbie, like getting back into life and all that. I remember having a talk with my sister and asking her just how I treated her before, you know, because 16 years I had no idea how my sister viewed me, and now suddenly I cared. And she said, well, beforehand, you barely spoke to me, you know? And I never meant to, like, not talk to her, but mortality does something to you. It lets you know what's worth cherishing and, you know, what's really not worth the hassle and what's not worth the concern. And I can't say what she was doing with her life. I can't say what my brother was doing with his life. You know, I just knew that for the longest time I was just a lot of people just kind of, like, everyone just kind of treated me differently, and I'm sure we can all relate to that. Like, everyone just kind of, I was kind of a social pariah, but I really wasn't a social pariah. Like, everyone wanted me around. But I would get there around the group and everything, and there's been a whole complete paradigm shift where, you know, I don't even know what's going on in this group anymore. And like, they wanted me around, but I had nothing to add to the conversations. I had nothing that I cared about to tell them, other than being like, hey, so yeah, I was at the hospital the other day, and this funny thing happened. I threw up twice. Ha 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 ha. You know, like, it kind of killed the room. And, you know, so, I mean, I tried my best to, you know, be a good person and keep my head up. But, you know, it didn't always kind of pan out that way. But, you know, you kind of take it one day at a time. And you just kind of keep moving forward. And new relationships would start. New friendships would arise. Obviously, I wasn't in school, so, you know, a lot of my time was spent at home. And, you know, just kind of in the neighborhood. And, you know, luckily the internet existed now. So, you know, I'd meet people, you know, and I'd, you know, hang out with some. And, you know, just take all the medications and just hope to not catch myself in the hospital. But yeah, like, all my friends at the time, like, my real close friends were those kids, man. Like, there was this boy named Justin, that he was one of the coolest kids in the world. He was like 8 or 9, and he was my buddy, man. Like, me and him just kind of did everything together while we were there. And, he was just a real fun dude. And, one of my closest friends from grade school, I was still kind of, you know, hanging out with him. And, you know, he actually moved to Chicago, and at one point, you know, like, I went to Chicago and visited him for a week, and, you know, but I mean, that was way later into, you know, the hospital stuff. Like, I had to have the right medications and all that, and just be set. But yeah, you know, it kind of set me up for a life of having to take medications and wanting to take others, and that's been kind of just a constant struggle throughout my life. Even still today. Because like I said, we'll get to it later. But I relapsed. Spoiler alert, and I had to go back in, but that was a little bit worse. But at this point in my life, at the point I was in, it was just taking it one day at a time, and it was just like trying to go forward and trying to rekindle friendships and rekindle relationships. But that's the thing, is there's no going back. You can only go forward. Like, no matter how much you want to go back, you can only go forward. And there's no, because like once everything happens, there's no turning away from it. There's no ignoring the fact that certain stuff happened. I want to close this by talking about my dad a little bit. Just because, when you get cancer or when you face the thing in your life that's going to change you, some people can handle it and rise to the occasion, and some don't. I was a goth kid, but honestly, like, I wasn't planning on being a goth kid. Like, I've joked about, like, this is the 90s, so a goth kid was Jinkos, black clothing, fingernail polish, black, of course, like, just jet black fingernail polish, drawing, like, oh, you don't know me inside the vampire life, and the vampire moon is in the sky, and but I remember when I got my first pair of Jinkos, like, I just thought they looked cool, man. Like, again, 90s kid. Like, I still think they look cool. Crap, if I could, I'd wear Jinkos all the time. I don't care what anyone has to say about it. And I don't care how they look. They're freaking comfy. I thought they were the coolest thing ever. Like, I thought they were just just the best clothes anyone could wear. And, but when I got them, I remember my dad saying, "Oh, you're wearing a dress." Like, I didn't know I had two daughters. And, like, oh, here comes my other daughter. Started out as a boy and, turned into an FAG or, just something. I mean, very, very Southern Baptist, very opinionated, and hated everything I did. Like, that's kind of how I felt. Like, it was just, there was nothing I liked that wouldn't make him, like, damn near throw up. But we got to a point that at my house, the living room was kind of like the main, obviously the main room of the house. So, and that's to say that you could not go to another room of that house. You couldn't go from one room to the other without passing through the living room. And my dad, that was, he had the big dad chair, the recliner, and, just sat there and watched TV all day. And, I went to work too, but, when he was home, that was when it was hard, because I would walk by, and every single time he'd have to throw out some comment. "Oh, here comes my other daughter." "Oh, I like the dress you got on. When's your boyfriend going to be over?" And just things like that. So it would hurt. It would bug me a lot. So what I started doing is, I started wearing a bracelet. The hair was starting to grow up because I just wanted longer hair. And he was like, "Oh, wow, you really are becoming just a little B word, and I don't remember the exact moment, but I just remember one day, a friend of mine, like, obviously a female friend of mine, we had made little, like, best friend bracelets and, wear these forever and all that. And it said, me and, I don't remember even who it was, but it was like, best friends Danielle. I think it was Danielle. But like this old friend of mine. But yeah, it said, like Danielle on it. And I walked through and just tried to, like, kind of pass it off and, like, just kind of shook the bracelet and just kind of like held my hand over the side of my face like you would if you just saw someone and you don't want them to see you at the bar or something. And he saw the bracelet and he was like, "Oh God, you're wearing jewelry now too," you know. But then I found out that when he got really mad, he would just he would like short circuit, you know, and he would just do this like, but he wouldn't be able to talk. So he gets so angry, but he would not be able to like say anything. So I took that as the fact that if I walk through there, if I need something to drink, I have to build up my self-esteem enough to where I can just walk through the room and just take whatever insult he is going to hit me with, because he's going to hit me with one. And then he's going to hit me with one going there and coming back. So it was either wear headphones, you know, so he'd have to be like, "Hey, can you take those off for long enough for me to talk to you? You just don't even want to talk to me." And I'd take them off and he's like, why do you have to wear all that shit? You know, why do you got to dress like that? You know, well, I mean, when am I going to get my son back? You know, just stuff like that. And so that didn't work. So, but that one time, man, I walked by with a bracelet and a little bit longer hair and, you know, tucked the hair behind my ear as I was going by and shook my hand so the bracelet made a noise. He was so angry that he could not speak. So he could not insult me. Like, he could not hit me with a scornful remark because he was too busy just short-circuiting, you know. So I could actually get to the kitchen and back, you know, without him saying anything. He was furious, but I was okay, you know. Like, he just kind of had to deal with it, you know. And, like, me, I was just trying to get a drink. Like, I'd love to talk to you on a normal plane, but, like, I'd also love to not be insulted. That's all you do, so, you know, why would I try to pet a dog that has rabies, you know? And then it just kind of, like, escalated from there. Like, when he finally got used to the fact that I had a bracelet on and the hair, and then he would start slinging more stuff my way, so I would throw on another bracelet, and the hair would get a little bit longer, and I'd paint one, I used to paint with just a Sharpie, but then I just straight up use black nail polish, because, you know, if I did it and he saw it, couldn't even speak. You know, so it just kept escalating and getting bigger and bigger. And before long, he was always at my right side. So I had the chair was at the right side on my right. So my right hand was covered in like bracelets and like just dark like goth kid jewelry and stuff. And then the left hand wasn't. The left hand had like nothing on it. And you know, and then my hair got to a point where it was like down to my chin, shaved on the sides, and I put it up in the top knot. Because, I mean, there was a time that was actually cool. It wasn't just like a throwback. It was a time when it was a brand new haircut, and I had one. But I would take my hair down, man, just so I could walk through the room. And I hated my hair behind my ears because, like, you know, you could feel it and it felt greasy and gross. And, you know, but I'd walk through that room, tuck the hair behind the ear, and he hated it. Like, he would get so angry and he would get so furious. And then he kind of developed a strategy of like just coming in the room and just kind of yelling at me for how I looked or something like that. Or I'd come home and I don't know if you guys remember Circus Magazine, but it was basically just a magazine of all the like new metal and like metal singers. It was just pictures of them. Like, that's a couple articles, mainly just pictures of like Coal Chamber and Korn and Slipknot and Limp Bizkit and just all the kind of guy Orgy, like just Deftones, all the guys that were like big around then. Really showing my age with all that. But yeah, I used to, you know, take those off and put another poster up, and then like you know, always skip out on Marilyn Manson. I mean, I had my rules. Like, none of the people that were like anti-God, that like in their music anyways, like I didn't know their like spiritual beliefs in general, but you know, if they had pentagrams on them, I didn't respect them. Like, because I've always been Christian. I was never about upside down crosses or anything like that. I just kind of started being more and more goth just to shut my dad up, you know, and yeah, that's a goth kid has daddy issues. Big surprise there, you know. But then, you know, I would come home and like one of my posters would be ripped off the wall, or all my posters would be ripped off the wall. And oh, you don't need that garbage. Oh, I ripped all that trash down. And if I didn't say anything about it, I just went through the room and sat there. He would come in the room and let me know that it was him. Like, oh, I pulled all that trash off your wall. Because we're not bringing that into this household. Not today, not never. We're not bringing hate and bad feelings into this household, and that's what you're trying to do. It's not the fact that I can't walk through the room without you calling me a girl or an FAG or just something like that, and anything. And he was just like that, and he very, very like verbally abusive, and then I got sick. Changed the entire dynamic. Because I got sick, now he can't hate me. And like you remember on my last episode that like if you don't like someone and they get sick, and if you try to act like you always had their back when you know in your heart of hearts that you did not, you're just trying to have some good karma on your side if anything happens to this person. It should not take a horrible thing to happen for you to realize that this person is valuable and precious and cherished by someone. Just if you don't like him, just hope for the best that someone does. Because someone does. Even if someone doesn't, their dog or cat likes them. So like someone needs them. So just leave them be. And that's if you come up to them and you let them know that and come up and act like you were always on their side, that you were always rooting for them, and like deep down you always knew they were courageous and all that stuff. Like that's the thing. The person you're talking to remembers everything that you remember. They were there too, buddy. No, you were not. You were not on my side. You've never been on my side. You've always had something horrible to say about me. So you're really just trying to. You just don't want to be the jerk that is saying bad about the cancer kid. Is what I felt like. But man, when I got sick, and I actually came out clean, he wore that like a badge of honor. Like he was telling everyone about like how courageous I was, and like making up story, like saying that the doctor said I had no chance of living, and I stood up and got in the doctor's face and said, I'm going to live through this. That's what I'm going to do. You don't get to tell me how long I'm going to live. And oh, there's the timer. But yeah, and that that's just chapter 1 of the relationship with me and my dad, because he with that whole thing is now he likes me. Now he realizes that maybe you shouldn't spend so much time like disliking stuff that someone else likes. Don't dislike someone for their favorite things. And if you just don't like them, that's not a reflection of them. Like whatever they're into is what they're into. Like if they don't like the music you're into, or the clothing, or like the they don't dress the same, doesn't mean they're a horrible person. I mean, what Wreck-It Ralph? Just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean you're a bad guy. Like. But he acted like I was, captain of the football team. Like he would tell all his friends about me. I remember at one point, like he was trying so hard, and he, bless his heart for that. But like it shouldn't have taken, me about to die for him to realize that, maybe he didn't want me to die. Maybe he wanted me to live, and maybe if he would have just accepted what I was into and not fought me on it, maybe I wouldn't have pushed back so much, because like I said, a lot of the stuff I did was just to dodge, a vindictive thing he was going to say. Like I was just trying to make him angry, because I figured out I could make him angry to the point where he could not even speak, and that was all I could do to avoid these like hurtful remarks that would just destroy me on the inside. I just had to make him mad enough to where he could not talk. And then here we are in a hospital room, and he's telling me about how all his friends at work are rooting for me, and how he's just so happy that that I'm still there, which I'm sure he is. I'm not taking that away, but it shouldn't take all that. It shouldn't take just a horrible situation for you to realize what you have. And unfortunately, that's kind of the world we live in. But the last little thing I want to say about it is I remember him discovering the band Creed. And we all know Creed. They're the archetype for Nickelback. And he heard that they were a rock band, I remember him coming up to me and saying, I don't even know how he got onto it, but he was like, "Hey, have you ever heard of the band Creed?" And I was like, yeah, I've heard of them, and With Arms Wide Open, and hello, my friend, we meet again, and all that, and he's sitting there telling me, well, they're a rock band, and did you know that some rock bands are Christians, and some of those people have really good values? Yeah. Yes, I do. I'm aware of it. I don't like Creed. I don't like them any further than I can throw them, and I'm very, very weak at the moment. So yeah, I'm not going to be throwing anything very far, And he said that I at the time it wasn't like Creed as big as they were. He went and got me a Creed CD. He was all he thought me and him were just gonna bond over Creed for some reason, and it was so stupid. And I was just like, God, get a little bit. Have you ever heard Slipknot? What? And but yeah, friends from his work would come visit me, and people that I had never met, and say hey, I just wanted to say down at the offices, we're all rooting for you, or down in the warehouse, we're all pulling for you, bud, and and I would just be like, hey, thanks, and thank you so much for the support and all that, and he would just light up, he would just he just adored it, and. So I'm glad I could be a little badge of honor and a little trophy for him, but I didn't want to be. But still, I didn't. It's never really treated like a person, and that is kind of where we're gonna leave it. Just for the longest time, I just didn't. I just didn't feel like I was treated like a person. You don't come out the other side of something and no one immediately says, hey, you're a hero, you're courageous. It takes some time. Someone has to reflect on it, especially you. You got to reflect on, what you went through and not give meaning to it, but just say dang, I went through it, didn't I? I went through some crap. And you just kind of have to appreciate it and be well, I didn't deserve any of it. It's not something that I decided to do, but I made do. I made it work. It's my lot to carry, but I didn't have to carry it far, it's just a challenge you have to face. Are you going to buckle under the pressure, or are you going to keep going? And it's not saying you're going to come out as Batman. You're not going to come out as a superhuman on the other side. I went through a lot of radiation, and I didn't come out with superpowers, but I did come out with a very superhuman heart and a superhuman love for a lot of people, and a superhuman awareness of what is right, what is wrong, and what is cherishable and what is not, and whatever issues, problems, whatever you're going through, just know that all you can do is take it one day at a time. Don't take on the whole project, because when someone told me that I finally asked the question is, how long is this process of going to the hospital every Monday? How long am I going to have to get spinal taps? How long am I going to have to get these, because also I had to get, bone marrow fluid taken like once every couple months. How long am I, and the steroids and the chemotherapy and going up every 3 weeks and staying for 3 days and then feeling like crap because I just did a round of chemotherapy and like when can I get back to a normal life? And they told me it was 2 years. 2 years of this. 365 days times 2. That I was going to have to go through all of this and just keep going. And I remember thinking, good Lord, that is a long time. How am I going to get through it? Because you can't do 2 years in a day. All you can do is don't look at it as the process you have to go through. Just let your survival skills kick in. And if you want to be angry, if that helps, get angry about it. Because you deserve more. But you get you decide what you get. If you think you deserve more, then you need to make sure you get exactly how much you're supposed to, and no less than that. And if you got to do this stuff angry, then do it angry. But just know that there's always someone who's had it worse, and there's always someone on the other side of it. There's people everywhere in all jumps of life. There's little bits of hope. Right this second, there are kids around the world that are in hospitals and, parents that don't know what they're going to do with themselves. Chester Bennington, how many people were touched by all that? We had a big tragedy in Las Vegas not too long ago where the guy just opened fire on these families. I don't know any of the people that got shot or tragically lost their lives, and I don't even know the person. I couldn't even tell you the guy's name, what his favorite color was. I don't know any of the names in that crowd, but I guarantee you there's people that are affected by that. Those were someone's families. Those were all someone's sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, fathers, mothers, wives, husbands, girlfriends, boyfriends, best friends, just friends, and they're going to have this horrible time in their life. Can you imagine if we were to reach out to them and say, hey, I can't imagine what you're going through, have gone through, or what you're about to go through with all this, but I know that I am sending you all the love I can, and if you want to talk, then I'm here to listen. And if you want to just sit there and listen, then I'll talk. So, next time, what do we want to talk about? There's so much, but I think, it's gotten a little bit too messed up. So I think the next one we're going to talk about, just the glory days of, because there after a few years I was back up and running. I ended up, the goth kid is still living inside my heart. And, now not only do I have all these years, I got through my 2 years of treatment. It's been 12 years. So it's been a very long time since I was told that since I looked at something and said, oh my God, this is going to be the longest 2 years ever. But once you take it one day at a time and you look back, you're going to figure out how many days you've put behind you and this whole thing. And now I can run like a madman. I could barely walk through a room without getting tired. So you come out the other side. You don't come out clean, but you come out better. I guarantee you will come out better. So one thing that I do like to mention is that, I spend many years and lots of hours on stage doing not really this, but, I've always wanted to live behind a microphone. So I've been the lead singer of a few bands, and I've done quite a few shows. I've gone on tours. I got CDs out there with bands that you've never even heard of, and some, never got signed, but lived that rock and roll lifestyle for a very long time. Hey, kitty. My cat just came in the room. But that's kind of what I want to touch on next, is that, in a few years, I would be going back to high school. I would even have my own place, and it was living the punk rock life. I was back to just kicking it. Obviously, it's a bad idea, but throwing back a few cold ones and just hanging out with the guys and just living a very metal lifestyle. And being on stage and doing all that stuff. But, that is going to be stories for another time. So, you know what? Let's go ahead and stop you right there and let you know that next time we're going to be talking about all the good times I've had, and also talk about the glorious, the wonderful, the legendary, the BA House. Yeah, buddy. I'm going to talk about some, next time I'm going to talk about some friends, and I'm going to talk about, all the friendships I made once I started going back to school, and then it's all going to culminate at the BA House, and then we'll just go on from there. But until then, that's my story so far of my battles and my wars. I hope my story helps you. Now go help someone with yours.